Yeah, okay, welcome back guys. Today is the last episode of the year. Like we had set up a goal, me and Kai set up a goal of like achieving 30 episodes this year and finally we achieved it. So this is episode number 30. And yeah,
So
so
proud,
yeah.
man. So proud.
Same bro. I'm proud as well.
Man, but honestly,
Uh
like before you start, I really didn't. I remember the first episode we did. I wasn't even gonna do the first episode. I
mhm.
think I told you already.
Yeah. You
Like I
weren't
was, I,
as
I was very
motivated as now.
reluctant. No, it's not like I'm not as motivated, but I feel like, oh man, if I start doing it, it should be like very devoted. Like, oh, we're gonna have to do it
Yeah,
every week, and then I feel like, oh,
yeah.
I'm gonna be very restricted by the whole thing. We did skip a couple of weeks sometimes, but I mean, man, we did it, man. 30 episode.
We can, but it's about consistency. It's about like showing up, and continuing to do it no matter what the circumstances
Exactly,
are,
man.
and continuing to do this thing that you at least you enjoy in life, And so it's not about perfection, and I don't think like our podcast is currently perfect, but hey, like we're getting better every day, and trying, and hopefully like 200, 300 episodes later, uh,
It's
it'll
gonna be
be
better,
it'll
man.
be a thing, yeah,
Hell
yeah,
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 man.
it'll be a thing. So
Remember
yeah.
we said 90% of it's like this research. They say 90% of people didn't even pass 3 episodes for their new
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah. And I think like 90% of them failed to finish episode 20 or something. So yeah, we're there, man. Like we just have to continue.
Let's go, man. So
Yeah,
what's today's topic?
we're talking about 3D. I think this year is a very interesting year because it's the year that I've seen a lot of people in the creative industry turn into 3D. And the reason I've noticed that is that because on my Instagram, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the accounts that I used to follow have turned into 3D accounts, into like posting these 3D creative artworks, right?
Yeah.
And especially like there's this guy called it's Kai One,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he's like a Kurdish creative photographer in the past, and his photography was good, and he was producing a lot of good work with photography and cinematography.
Yeah.
But I think like this year he blew up just by turning into 3D, and this year was like, as far as I know, his first year learning how to do 3D, and he took all the concepts and all the knowledge that he had learned from photography and cinematography, took that, learned Blender, and applied all that knowledge and created the compositions that he wanted to create without being able to, without needing the physical um, resources, and he applied that into 3D and created these beautiful compositions, and his like art blew up. He's quite famous now, at least as far as I know. From that, he's selling NFTs and his work is great. And it got me thinking because when I was in school, right,
Yeah.
I used to learn a lot about 3D, and I used to learn about, like, I got really interested in like cinema 4D and all of that, and I took some courses in cinema 4D, and I really liked I really liked, like, specifically what I really liked about 3D is that, like, the rendering, the fact that you
Mm-hmm.
can create something that looks very much real, but you're in full control of it, you know? And I really like that aspect. And I really cared at that time about like render engines, Arnold, Octane, Redshift, Cinema 4D render engines. I learned a little bit about Blender, but then my knowledge in Cinema 4D was a lot higher than Blender, and so that's why I continued with Cinema 4D, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, and Blender is great as well. And there are, like, I learned that there are a lot of men. Like, this is a whole new industry. It's a whole different world out there when it comes to 3D, and people like specialize in it,
But
And
I'm a bit curious, like, why do you think this year, 2021, became like the year for 3D? One thing that I can think of right now is because of
yeah,
NFT. Like, a lot of people are doing NFT, and people who were
yeah,
doing already 3D, like, they came out and then they started to sell their NFT. But
yeah.
besides that, what else do you think is the reason why 3D became much popular than before?
Dude, I think the main reason is COVID, right?
Huh.
And what happened is that, let's say you start out as a photographer, right? And
Right.
you start your journey as a beginner, and you start to learn about, photography and compositions and all of that. And then you kind of hit a breaking point. And that breaking point is basically when you start learning about lighting and the tools and the physical needs, and you start to get these very creative and crazy ideas in your mind, right? And these ideas, like, you think about them in your head, and you see other high budget photographers and filmmakers do, in their you see their work and it's great, but you look at yourself and you're like I cannot afford to buy all this lighting, all these beautiful locations, and get all these nice models, to create these
Yeah.
compositions. And 3D solves that completely. I understand it's not the same art form, it's not the same, obviously that's photography, and that's 3D, that's filmmaking, that's 3D, but you can kind of visualize all, like bring all the visions that you have in your head into reality, into
But you
something
can
that is
apply the
visible,
skill
visual
set
form.
that right? Like the composition,
Exactly.
lighting,
Exactly.
right? These are the same things that, like, in order, even if you're like the best 3D artist in the world, but if you don't have knowledge for composition and lighting, then
Dude,
there's no,
100%.
right?
Yeah, it's the same concept. Everything is the same. And so yeah, like 3D just solves this physical limitations that you have in the real world, right? Because in that world you can do whatever you want as long as you know the tools, right? And that is what's amazing about it, I think. And that's why we've started to see this shift, and the possibilities are limitless. Like you can add mountains, like do whatever you want,
And
when
isn't
it
it
comes to
like
creative work.
you said, like you can create mountains and all kind of things, right? And what I saw, I think now that you mention it, I feel like there's two reasons. One is that 3D become more accessible to people. Back then, you really
Yeah.
need to have a really good graphic card to
Yeah.
be able to render even like a very small 3D object right now, right? And so now people get good graphic cards, and I think these 3D render programs are more and more friendly to lower end computers, right? Lower end computers
Yeah.
can work with these 3D programs as well. That's why it's the entry level is like the bar is getting lower and lower. Like more and more people can get into it. And from what I see in the filmmaking world, I told you I have a lot of friends who do 3D. When you're doing, like, we did these live action commercials, right? And there's certain
Yeah.
things that it's cost less money to do it in 3D, right? Like
Yeah.
we needed to shoot like a shot with the phone dropping, let's say, from the sky to the ground. But if we actually do it, it first of all, there's so much things that it need to be very calculated, and we need to bring the phone very high, and then it depends on the weather, and then we have to test it, and then we have to buy multiple phones to try it. So the cost of experimenting it is too expensive. Whereas if we just did it in 3D, and if the guy did
There's
it
no
with
cost.
yeah, there's almost no
Yeah.
cost. Yeah, you're right. It's like you just need to
Yeah.
render it, and we just hired this guy who do 3D, and then he did it. We can just like even fly around this world that he created, and we can do in every composition, every focal length, every angle, right? So it's much more flexible, and it's much cheaper. Why wouldn't you want to do that if you can do it in? I mean, there are some filmmakers who always insist, as we all know, Christopher Nolan, he doesn't want to use any visual effects. But
Yeah.
I feel like when it comes to the cost, and if everything just look as good as live action, why wouldn't you do it? Especially from a commercial perspective, you don't spend a lot of money doing it, right?
Yeah. 100%, dude. It's cost, and like you can do whatever you want, like as cheesy as that may sound, but like as long as you have the technical capability, like of good graphics card, and like you can work really quickly, then you can do whatever you want. And especially like with these like very fast render engines like Octane is, I think it's a unbiased render engine, and basically it's like it's very, very, very quick. Like when you press render, like the results that you see are very first of all, like it's amazing, it's very realistic, and the results that you see are like quite amazing, in terms of speed, in terms of workflow. It's just a crazy thing to have, and a lot of the people in the industry use it actually, because if you look at their works, especially if you go to Behance and like look at their works, like some of the tools would always see Octane there. There's also Houdini, there's people use other softwares and other render engines like V-Ray, Houdini, and yeah. But honestly, like from my experience, like as a beginner in the 3D world, one thing I noticed is that like the difficulty with 3D is like kind of like an ocean, once you dive deep, you realize that there's like so much inside that you have to understand, and so many new programs that you have to learn. For instance, when I started learning 3D, right? at first I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn like the just Cinema 4D, just the software. I learned it, and then I reached a point where like, okay, like why are my renders not good? You know, why am I
Mm-hmm.
not getting good renders? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously you can do it with the renderer inside Cinema 4D, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people, I realized that a lot of people use other render engines. You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I
yeah.
downloaded Arnold on my MacBook. And
Mm-hmm.
then I started using Arnold as a render
Mm-hmm.
engine, which is like
Yeah.
very good, by the way. It's very good for
Mm-hmm.
characters, very good for um, it's a good render engine, you know,
Yeah.
but it's not as fast as Octane. And so I
Yeah.
started using Arnold, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then and then I started downloading textures and like
Yeah.
trying to apply those into my models and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, I was happy at first, but then I realized like, oh, like my textures are not so realistic, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, what do people do? And it turns out there are like other softwares that you need to learn, like Substance Designer, Substance Painter, where you kind of paint your texture and create these extremely realistic textures. And like there's another step to that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that there are more things I need to learn about how to use these programs, and there are technical difficulties that I couldn't come over. And so there was a lot of obstacles that I need to solve in order for me to create what I wanted to create, you know,
Right.
which is like totally fine, you know. That's the rule of the game, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of slowed me down as I was learning, you know.
What was it?
And
Was it like frustrating? Frustrating? Like, did you get demotivated by
yeah,
that?
yeah. I got demotivated because there were a lot of softwares, and I had like, and the softwares are really difficult. Like they're difficult, man. It's not like Premiere or After Effects, and the softwares are different. So for Adobe, when you learn something, you learn multiple tools, especially like as I know you use Premiere, right? At least you know how to use Premiere, and then that transfers to After Effects and transfers to Audition
Yeah,
and
and,
all
and
these
I
softwares.
guess these are more intuitive, right? These editing programs are pretty intuitive. Like
Yeah,
just use the way you see it. But I don't know, like
yeah,
obviously I'm not familiar with 3D programs. Like I don't know how it works when you first get into the interface.
yeah.
Was it
Like,
intimidating or
dude, it was quite difficult. But like Cinema 4D is like a lot of people say it's easy. You know, I don't know. I found it difficult to learn Cinema 4D. And Blender was like extremely hard to use, man. Like the shortcuts are not intuitive. It's an open source software,
but I
so
heard they have the worst like user interface among all of the 3D
yes,
programs.
dude, definitely 100%. Blender is like a pain in the ass to learn, you know, and
But it's
so
free, right? So
yeah, that's the I guess the catch, you know. So there's that as well. And yeah, I think in 2022 is going
mhm.
to be the year of 3D, man. I think that more and more people are going to join 3D, because also like if you look at it, the world is turning digital, you know.
Yeah,
Photography and filmmaking is definitely like it's there to stay, but
yeah.
I feel like more and more people are going to join 3D because a lot of companies are demanding 3D generalists now. And what a 3D generalist is that he does like he's good at kind of like wears multiple hats and good at modeling, texturing, lighting, like
Mhm.
kind of the all-in-one package, right? But they have
Oh,
the mind of a creative director, so they set out to do something and they do it, you know.
mhm.
And that's what 3D general. So a lot of companies now are requiring 3D generalists to join their teams,
Is it
and I think
like a production company or just like a
no, it's a
commercial company?
person. I think the production companies and some of the like the architecture companies, and you know the
Yeah,
ones that need
I
it.
saw some tech company hiring like 3D
Yeah,
artists.
yeah. Even tech companies, yeah. So there's that as well. It's an interesting world, and actually one of my New Year's resolution is to dive into 3D more and learn more and create more.
Yeah, I'm still very hesitant on that. Like, because I feel like once I enter it, I should be like, I don't want to just start learning just a little bit and then give up. Like, if I
Yeah,
put just even like a week on it, I don't want to lose it. You get it? Otherwise, it's just like
yeah,
a week of time flush into the toilet and it's gone. So if I'm gonna do it, I want to be at least like like reach a level where I'm somewhere, you know, instead of just.
yeah.
So you wanna like what's your goal though? Like how good do you want to be in 3D?
Dude, I want to learn texturing. You know, I want to learn how to create realistic textures. That's at least my goal
But
for
like
now.
what you
You
gonna
know,
do with the
because
3D
that's where
though?
I stopped at. I can do anything, man. Because I can, let's say, I want to storyboard something, or I have an idea. I want to put it into a visual form, I can do that whenever I want, and
But is
I
it
don't have to
necessary
be.
for you to learn like the whole 3D thing to do what you want to do?
And I'm also partly interested in it, I'm
Right,
interested in the 3D world. I like it, I like to create these sci-fi things that people create. So yeah, I guess there's a bit of interest, and at the same time
There's this guy that I used to follow, I think I told you, called the Patrick 4D. I don't know if you heard of him.
Okay. I don't think. Yeah.
Like
No.
he's pretty big on Instagram, and he just create these 3D renders on Instagram. And I took one of his course on Skillshare.com,
Mhm.
which we're
Yeah.
not sponsored by, but like
Yeah.
he created this very basic like okay, like the reason why I touched 3D just that little bit for maybe like a course of 2 months was because I wanted to create cool title sequence. Because
Oh yeah.
like
I worked on some of those.
my,
Yeah.
my goal when we were a student and doing this filmmaking thing, I was just doing all of the research on how to make my film look high budget. That's the
Yeah.
whole my point. So the first thing I learned was color grading. They say if you do
Yeah.
good color grading, they look high budget. The second thing
Yeah.
is if you have a good title sequence. So
Mhm.
that's why I went to title sequence. And I don't know if you saw my film, the one called No Hand No Game, that Italian. I don't know if you remember. Have you seen it?
I think I've seen it. Yeah, you showed it to me. Yeah.
It's a very stupid student film, but the beginning of it has this title sequence where it was on the ground. We were at the park, and then it went underground. And then when you underground, you saw the production company, our credit, and all that stuff, and it's like a 3D thing. So that was where I learned how to do 3D. But after that, it was just
You weren't quite interested.
I was interested, honestly, but my computer couldn't handle it, and it was very frustrating because my computer took literally a whole night to render one photo. I was using. That's why I was surprised when I heard you that you were using your MacBook Pro to do the renders.
Yeah, it depends. Dude, my MacBook Pro was dying.
But you still
so
could
I was-
manage to do things with it.
Yeah, I mean, still images, but not like nothing fancy. Like
Could you
I
animate
was just
it?
doing
Could you animate
frames.
with
Yeah.
Cinema 4D?
No, none of that, bro.
Oh man,
It's impossible.
like my ex-colleague who used to run like these 3D artists, they have like 2, 3, 4 like
1080s or
no man 3000
3090s.
3090s or 3090s Ti.
Yeah,
that's,
you
like,
need that.
super expensive, and then I think people they even like they send it to these companies that they just do renders for you. There are these
They
companies in
send it
Taiwan.
to a render farms. This is
Yeah,
what
they call it render
it.
farm.
So,
Yeah, they call it render farm.
yeah.
You got it that in Qatar? Do they have it render farm in Qatar?
I don't know. I have no idea.
What
Maybe they
exactly
do.
is a render farm though?
Basically a bunch of computers with very fast GPUs that render your sequence.
But so you just send them the project file and they render it
I
for
think
you?
so. Yeah.
Like how do they charge it though?
I think it depends on like the length of the project.
No, like do they charge per length or per complexity?
I'm not quite sure. I have no idea.
That's very interesting though. Like
Yeah.
because
But my knowledge goes as far as like people send them to render farms. But the details I've never done that.
man, like I saw this photo just today.
Yeah.
There's this. Have you heard of Unreal Engine?
I have. Yeah.
Like Unreal Engine, they used to do it for games, right?
Yeah.
But
It
nowadays,
is for games. Yeah.
I don't know the details, but like I heard it initially started as game, but nowadays a lot of movies use Unreal Engine to create.
I've seen
visual
I've seen
effects.
something like that. Yeah.
Like I saw these car chasing scenes, and then they did the whole thing on Unreal Engine. But there was
Is it
like,
realistic though?
well, from what I see, it's super realistic since they put it in the movie. It was a feature film.
Shit.
Yeah, like a lot of people were learning how to use Unreal Engine. Man, it's just so like just the fact that there's so much program out there is already pretty intimidating to me. But
Yeah.
I was like, from my perspective, it's like how much do I need to know about 3D for me to be able to communicate with the 3D artist fluently? Like that's my whole thought. Like I don't want to get into too deep. I just want to know enough so if I hire a 3D artist, I know what I'm talking about. I don't want to hire a guy who like he cannot do what I want to do, but I don't know anything about 3D, so I cannot really like communicated with them as well. Because like you said, 2022 is probably going to be a year of 3D as well. Like probably a bunch of commercial that I'm going to shoot, I'm going to need 3D artists to help me achieve certain effects and stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
And it
so
might be easier for you, you know?
exactly, because like sometimes we needed to build set to shoot certain things, whereas like I'm not really a big fan of using green screen for everything, but really like when you have a low budget project, you just gotta, I mean, it really depends. Sometimes it's more expensive to hire a 3D artist. Sometimes it's easier to shoot it like raw directly. But I really need to know how to communicate with these artists so I can really like explain what I want.
Yeah. No, totally, dude. I think like if you have a story and you have a certain shot that you need to get, and you cannot get it physically, or physically it's too expensive or too demanding, then and you can do it with 3D, you have the option for that, then that would be sick, you know?
Plus, I really want to shoot for tech companies. Like I work with a couple of ones before, but those are like just still photography. Like
Yeah,
I wanna
also
make videos.
yeah, speaking of tech companies, a lot of the products that you see nowadays, like the smartphones, like OnePlus, I think OnePlus, the commercials for these smartphones and high budget brands, they use 3D, man. Nike uses a lot of 3D. Apple uses, like you see the Apple keynotes, they're
Yeah.
all 3D, man. This is all 3D, and so
It really adds
there's
a
like
lot of value to it. Like
yeah.
the whole production just look much better when
Yeah.
they have these inside. So
Yeah, they flip
I
the
guess-
phone, they turn it around, they like
but the
change
thing
the
is,
lighting.
like I sometimes I get very confused about it. Like I see this Apple commercial, Microsoft commercial, and I feel like they have this transition between like live action into 3D, but it's so seamless that you don't even know.
Yeah.
Like for example, I saw this shot of a woman using a phone, right? And then the camera just came in and then went to like over the shoulder, and then she just let go of the phone, and then the phone start to like fly in the air, float in the air, and then the whole background just fade out, like fade into white, and then the phone just start to do some, like it's just start to dissect, like the whole thing. There's no cut. I don't know if you can imagine what I'm saying, but it's
Yeah.
like she dropped the phone, and then the background disappeared, and then the phone started to dissect into all of the chips and stuff inside. Like I'm sure she was holding an actual phone, but then when it started to dissect, it's obviously 3D, but you don't see the cut in between these two shots.
Because the texturing is really good. The texturing is realistic, that's why.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing. Like that's something that
Yeah.
we need, because
Yeah.
there's so much dynamic into it, and this is the type of commercial that I would want to finish it, because it's just so
Yeah.
like appealing to the eye, you know.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
feel like the directors need to know the process,
Of
like,
course.
the working process of it, because
Of
otherwise
course.
you wouldn't know how to shoot it, right? How
I
do you know how to
definitely
shoot it?
think, I definitely think you need to have a basic understanding of 3D in order to like direct someone. Because for as long as you can say as much as we can say that the overall rules
Mhm.
are the same, it's
Yeah.
still the technical details and the technical things that the possibilities that you can do are different, you know. And so
Right.
that's when like your knowledge of using the softwares,
Mhm.
technical softwares, then that's when it comes in. You know, if you want to tell somebody to add that light in, and you know this thing is possible and that thing is not possible, like you know the capabilities of the software, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't need to be you need to be good to a certain extent in order to deliver what you wanted to convey, you know.